more dark materials. We are moderatorless, so we're doing it ourselves.
We're just winging it.
And what we would love is for this to be kind of a conversational kind of style. So if you have a question at some point when we are in between questions up here, please do raise your hand. We would love to hear from you as we go through it. First, we're going to start us off with some introductions. We're going to introduce ourselves, our books, and then we're going to get into some starter questions, and it'll go from there. I'm going to go first. I'm still talking. I'm going to go first. My name is Traci Chee. I am the author of The Reader, which is a young adult fantasy, and its sequel, The Speaker, which is coming out in November, and I just announced a pre-order campaign earlier this week, so you can get cool stuff if you pre-order. The Reader is a young adult fantasy set in a world where pretty much no one can
Of Daughter of the Burning City, which is a young adult fantasy mystery about a girl who is an illusionist, and she runs a freak show at this roaming carnival of debauchery. And one by one, her illusions start getting murdered. And so she has to figure out who is killing them, why, and then how they're managing to kill people who don't really exist. I also am the author of Ace of Shades, which is the first of the Shadow Game series, which comes out in April. I am holding it for the first time today, so I am proudly displaying my ugly coverless baby.
My name's Rin Chupeco, and I wrote The Bone Witch. The Bone Witch is about a bard who meets a girl on a beach full of monster skeletal bones, and she tells him of her life in a magical geisha-like society called Asha, and where her main task is raising the dead. But as she goes along, she tells her tale, the bard slowly realizes that she is not as innocent as she first appears to be. And this is the first in a trilogy, and if you would like more information about the sequel, which is going to be called The Heart Forger, I'm going to be leaving these over here so you guys can take them later. Yeah.
I'm Linsey Miller, author of Mask of Shadows, lots of knives. It's the first in a duology, so the second one will come out hopefully next summer, barring any murder, I guess. It is about...
They're dark materials, folks.
That's all I'll be saying for this panel. Thank you. It's about a gender-fluid thief named Sal who auditions to become the Queen's next royal assassin, who are named after the rings she wears on her left hand, ruby, emerald, amethyst, and opal. And Sal has to survive the fight-to-the-death competition style while also finding and seeking revenge on the nobles that facilitated the destruction of their homeland 10 years ago.
So I would classify Daughter as a dark fantasy because of the way that it has this whimsical gothic horror type of vibe to it, even though I wouldn't call it necessarily a horror book, but it takes elements out of those books, and somehow when I take enough of those elements, I just call it dark, and that covers it. I think also the way that it takes on murder, some of the more monstrous sort of characters sort of play into the whole vibe. And then lastly, it's set in this carnival, and it's this big as a city carnival, and it's called Gomorrah, named after Sodom and Gomorrah from the Bible. Yeah, I definitely went with Gomorrah as the namesake as opposed to Sodom. And it's supposed to be this place where darkness of all sorts, debauchery of all sorts, is accepted and taken in stride. So you could go there simply for the freak show that she performs at, or you could go there for assassins or drugs or something of that sort, and it's all part of the festival. And it's all just part of this atmosphere of smoky darkness. Yeah.
So how do you find a balance between those things?
It has to have a purpose. Not that all bad things have a purpose, but that I'm not just going to have all my characters get stabbed in the face because I'm going all in. This is the moment, you guys. Choose. No, these are things that people experience in real life, and you have to deal with them, and how do you do that? And I drew really hard lines on some things I wasn't going to include in Mask of Shadows, no sexual assault, no rape. Those are high crimes, you get executed for them.
Yeah.
So the different degrees of what we see in media, I feel we have to draw the line on where we go, because it requires different things to deal with them in literature.
because you do have to deal with them. Yeah, I feel like I always like tragic books, like the Shakespearean tragedy, but it still has to end on, like you said, like a purpose or even like some sort of high note. You need to, if you have darkness, you need to balance it out with something else. For me, I like to balance it out with ship trash as much as possible. I'll actually I'm a pretty heavy plotter. Before I write, I really like to outline, I really like to organize. I'm an accountant, and every book I have is like a bajillion spreadsheets. And one of the things I'll actually do is I'll go in, and for every chapter I'll assign it scores based on things like darkness, emotional intensity, and so I can like just straight up like line graph my novel. Turn it into like the most analytical thing. Wow. And but it helps me like visualize, like, does it get too dark at points? Like maybe like I shouldn't kill people 2 chapters in a row, like somebody should kiss in between. Yeah, it's Excel, but it's like fun.
The mathematical approach to writing fantasy.
I know, I super want to see these spreadsheets because I feel like they're really helpful.
They're like color coded. Yeah, every time I try to talk about them, like people get a little scared.
Scared or excited?
I can't tell, I'm excited.
What about you, Rin?
Well, for me, it's always been about like the characters. Like they can't go too dark. Like, don't ever make your protagonist like Hitler or something. Like if any of that come out, I will punch them in the face. And like there has to be sort of like a balance between being an anti-hero and being too much of a villain. And by that I usually when I write those kinds of characters, I usually think about kindness versus niceness. And well, my degree was in computer science, so I'm gonna use some like technical words for a bit. And I say that niceness is kind of like a front end word if you were an app. So that it's basically niceness is what you do so that other people can use you like an app, or it's a word, it's a term where people, it's how you interact with people, but it's not necessarily who you are. It's what you do so that people can like you. So when you say a nice guy isn't always a nice guy, and when somebody goes out of their way to say that they're a nice person, chances are they're not actually as nice as they'd like you to believe.
Sadly, I guess publishing is still business.
Yeah.
So they have to sell books. So the idea generally is to make it look like it's a dark fantasy, but also like a fantasy that, I think with YA dark fantasy, we try to make it like crossover for adults too. So they try to make it fit in on an adult fantasy shelf, which is another aspect of it.
I'm gonna jump in. I'm gonna say I love my cover. I don't know, like it doesn't look, because it's not like a debauched city kind of fantasy. It's a cowboy pirate world, and like I have to say I love how it ended up turning out, because like we have different elements from the book here. Like there is the book that she has to solve the mystery, and then like elements from the setting, and then I am super happy that there's a girl of color on this cover. Like it was, I feel like I almost cried when I saw this for the first time. And yeah, it was my publisher who was like, we want a girl of color on the cover, and I was like, all right. So I didn't have a lot to say, but I did luck out, and I feel like it actually reflects the book pretty well. So
yeah, I feel like they still take into account that they might ask for like a Pinterest board, or they ask for your ideas. Like they didn't take any of them, but they asked. So obviously the title being smoky, it reflects the title is a burning. Okay. The color scheme though directly comes from the book. I have a thing, I give everything color schemes. So like the Gomorrah Festival in Daughter, it's fuchsia, violet, and red, because it's supposed to be this like really gaudy, like over the top thing, and so they reflected that in the cover. Like the casinos in Ace of Shades all have color schemes too. I'm just very like Hogwarts. I like it. So I've seen that come up, but I don't know. They really do try to like make everything match, like the title, the cover, the tagline. They do try to package it. So
by Sarah Nicole Lemon, and it is fabulous. It's right over there on that bookshelf. Blue cover, yellow text. It's amazing.
Am I reading anything? I don't know.
The last thing I read was Rebel Seal. Axie's Here. It's by Axie O. It's really good sci-fi.
That's really good.